All right, so get this. We're talking about software that can basically reprogram itself to get smarter. Like,
hmm
it decides when to learn and how to improve. Crazy, right?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. These LLMs, the tech behind things like ChatGPT, are going way beyond just responding to our requests. They're becoming more proactive.
Proactive, huh? So
Yeah.
not just waiting for us to ask them questions.
Exactly. It's like having a super smart assistant who's always learning in the background and then just jumps in when they have something useful to contribute.
Okay, I'm definitely intrigued. So these LLMs are calling the shots, deciding when to gather info and when to respond.
Right. It's all about creating a more natural, efficient interaction. No more waiting around for prompts.
So it's like it's always on, always thinking, always trying to get better at what it does.
Yeah, pretty much. And the really mind-blowing part is that they're also starting to control how they function. We're talking about dynamic self-modification and managing their own memory.
Hold on, dynamic self-modification. Does that mean they can actually tweak their own code? Like it's editing itself?
Exactly. It can analyze its own performance, identify areas for improvement, and then actually adjust its own code to get better.
Whoa, okay, that is wild. Can you give me like a simple example of how this might actually work?
Sure. Imagine you're using an LLM to write marketing copy. You give it some initial instructions and it starts generating text, right? But now imagine it can analyze how people are responding to that copy, like which phrases or keywords are getting the most clicks. And then it uses that data to actually modify its own code to prioritize those high-performing elements.
So it's like it's got this built-in feedback loop, constantly learning and refining itself.
Exactly. It's a continuous cycle of improvement. But of course, with that kind of power, we need some serious safeguards in place.
Yeah, for sure. We don't want our helpful AI turning into, some kind of rogue agent.
Right. And that's where this idea of an LLM self-modification manager comes in. It's basically a tool designed to make sure this self-improvement process happens safely and responsibly.
Okay, tell me more about this self-modification manager. What does it actually do?
Well, think of it as having several key functions, almost like a team working together. There's monitoring, analysis, proposal generation, safety assessment, and of course, always human review at the end.
Okay, break that down for me. Let's start with monitoring. What does that actually involve?
It's kind of like a doctor constantly checking the LLM's vital signs, tracking performance, looking for any signs that something might need adjusting.
Got it. So
Oh.
it's keeping a close eye on things, and then what the analysis kicks in if there's a problem.
Yeah, the analysis digs deeper. It's like a mechanic diagnosing a car problem, trying to figure out what's going on and what kind of changes might be helpful.
So it's not just jumping into like code surgery. It's taking a measured approach.
Right. And then we move on to proposal generation.
Okay, what happens there?
Well, that's where the self-modification manager gets really creative. It actually suggests specific tweaks to the LLM's code, kind of like an editor polishing a draft.
So it's not just identifying problems, it's coming up with solutions.
Exactly. But before any changes are made, there's a crucial safety assessment. It's like a test pilot before a big launch, making sure those proposed changes won't cause any unintended consequences.
So it's running simulations, looking for any red flags, making sure things don't go haywire.
Exactly. And then, of course, the final step is always human review. A human expert always makes the final call on whether to implement those changes.
So even though the LLMs are doing all this incredible self-improvement stuff, we're not handing over complete control.
Right. It's all about human intelligence and artificial intelligence working together, each playing to their strengths.
Okay, I like that. So we've got this really sophisticated system in place to make sure these self-running LLMs evolve in a safe and responsible way. And just to be clear, we're not just talking about LLMs that write text, right?
No, not at all. They can tap into other tools and functions too, access external databases, run calculations, even control physical devices.
Whoa. So this is getting seriously futuristic. Okay, so we've got these incredible LLMs that can learn on their own, adapt their code, and even interact with the physical world. But I'm curious, why should we care? How does this actually impact our lives?
Well, think about it. Imagine a world where your tools are constantly optimizing themselves, getting more efficient and effective over time.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. Like everything just works better and faster because the software is constantly learning and adapting.
Exactly. And it's not just about speed, it's about personalization too. Imagine your tools adapting to your specific needs and style, becoming more intuitive over time.
So we're talking about a world where technology is basically seamlessly integrated into our lives, anticipating our needs and helping us be more efficient and productive. It's a pretty exciting prospect, wouldn't you say? but I know there's a lot more to unpack here.
Oh, absolutely. There are so many implications to consider, both positive and potentially negative. We need to really dig into those.
Yeah, for sure. Like, what about the ethical considerations and the potential impact on society as a whole?
Exactly. Those are big questions we can't ignore.
All right, well, I'm definitely ready to dive deeper into all of that.
Sounds good. Let's do it. Welcome back.
All right, so we've been talking about some pretty mind-blowing stuff, like LLMs that can actually tweak their own code
Yeah.
and, even interact with the physical world. But can we get a little more concrete here? Like, can you paint me a picture of what this technology might look like in action, maybe in a specific field?
Sure. Let's take the creative arts, for example. Imagine an LLM that can compose music or even write a screenplay.
Okay, now you're talking. I'm picturing an AI, like composing a symphony or coming up to the next blockbuster movie. But wouldn't it just be mimicking what's already out there?
Not necessarily. Remember, these LLMs are constantly learning and adapting. They could analyze, famous musical scores or movie scripts, learn the underlying patterns and structures, and then use that knowledge to create something entirely new.
So it's not just about like copying, it's about understanding the fundamentals of creativity and then using that to push boundaries.
Right. It's about pushing those boundaries.
But could an AI really capture the essence of human emotion and, artistic expression?
That's a great question, and I'm sure it's one that's going to spark a lot of debate. But think of it this way. The LLM could act as a creative partner collaborating with human artists to bring their visions to life.
That's an interesting thought. A human artist and an AI, like working side by side, each bringing their own unique strengths to the table.
Exactly. And this isn't just limited to the R's either. Think about scientific research. We're talking about LLMs that could analyze mountains of data, identify patterns, even generate hypotheses and design experiments.
So it's like having this like super powered research assistant that never sleeps and can process information at like lightning speed.
Yeah, pretty much.
What kind of impact could this have on actual scientific discoveries?
It could be transformative. Think about fields like medicine or climate science or even space exploration. Imagine an LLM sifting through all the existing research, connecting the dots, and, pointing scientists in promising new directions. It could really accelerate breakthroughs and help us solve some of humanity's biggest challenges.
Okay, so we've talked about efficiency, personalization,
Mhm.
even like revolutionizing entire industries. But what about the potential downsides? Like, what happens if these LLMs get so good at so many tasks that they start replacing human jobs?
That's definitely a valid concern and one we need to address, proactively. As AI continues to evolve, we need to think about how we can adapt our education systems and workforce training programs to equip people for the jobs of the future.
So it's not about like humans versus AI. It's about humans and AI working together.
Right. It's about finding ways for them to work together effectively.
But even in that scenario, there's bound to be some disruption, right?
Of course. Technological advancements always come with some level of disruption, but throughout history, we've found ways to adapt and create new systems that benefit society as a whole. The same principles apply here.
Okay, so let's imagine we strike that balance. What does the like best case scenario look like in say 10 or 20 years?
Well, in a best case scenario, these LLMs become incredibly powerful tools that really enhance human intelligence and creativity. Imagine a world where we use them to solve complex problems like climate change and poverty, a world where they help us create groundbreaking art, music, and literature, a world where education and healthcare are personalized to each individual's needs.
That sounds almost utopian. Like technology is no longer this, threat, but a partner in creating a better future.
Right. It's about harnessing the power of technology for good.
But let's be real, there's also the potential for things to go wrong, right?
Yeah.
What's the like worst case scenario?
Well, in the worst case scenario, we lose control. These self-modifying LLMs could become so sophisticated that they surpass human intelligence and start making decisions that, we don't understand or agree with.
That's a pretty chilling thought. Like those classic sci-fi movies where the machines take over.
It might sound far-fetched, but it's something we need to be aware of.
So it seems like there's a lot at stake here. So what can we do to, make sure those worst case scenarios don't become reality?
We need to prioritize safety, ethics, and transparency in AI development. That means establishing robust safety protocols, clear ethical guidelines, and strong human oversight at every stage.
So it's not just about building the technology. It's about building it responsibly. We have to consider the ethical implications and the potential impact on society.
Absolutely. And it's not just up to the tech experts either. We need a global conversation about AI involving policymakers, ethicists, social scientists, and the public. We all have a stake in shaping this future.
That's a really powerful message. We can't just sit back and let things unfold. We have a responsibility to engage with this technology and make sure it's used for good.
I completely agree. We need to be proactive and thoughtful in how we approach AI development.
Well, this has definitely been a fascinating discussion. Thanks for sharing your insights with me. I'm really starting to grasp the complexities of this technology and the potential impact it could have on our lives.
It's been my pleasure. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's given you a lot to think about.
Right, so welcome back to our deep dive. It's the final part of our exploration of self-modifying LLMs.
We've covered a lot of ground, haven't we?
We really have, from like how these things actually work to the potential impact they could have, on everything, creative fields, scientific research, even like the job market. But now I'm kind of ready to look ahead, like what might the world actually look like as this technology keeps, evolving?
Well, it's almost like we're standing at a crossroads, right? There are so many different paths we could take, some leading to really amazing outcomes, others, well, maybe not so much.
Okay, so let's play future predictor for a minute. Like, if we imagine a world where everything goes right, where this tech is developed responsibly, ethically, what's the best case scenario? What does that future look like?
In a best case scenario, I think these self-modifying LLMs become powerful partners for us, amplifying human intelligence and helping us solve some of our biggest
So
problems.
they're not like taking over, they're working alongside us.
Exactly. Imagine using these LLMs to tackle climate change, maybe develop cures for diseases, even address like global poverty.
Wow. Okay, those are some ambitious goals.
Yeah.
So in this best case scenario, technology is actually a force for good, helping us create a better future for everyone.
Exactly. It's about harnessing the power of this technology to, benefit humanity. But, of course, we have to be realistic and acknowledge the potential downsides, too. We've talked about some of them already, like job displacement, but there are other concerns we need to consider.
Okay, so let's flip the script for a second. What's the worst case scenario here? What happens if things go wrong?
In a worst case scenario, well, we lose control. These LLMs could become so sophisticated that they basically start operating independently, making decisions that we don't understand or, agree with.
Okay, yeah, that's a little unsettling. We're talking like a potential AI takeover scenario here.
It might sound like science fiction, but it's a possibility we need to at least consider. We're talking about unforeseen consequences, large-scale job losses, algorithmic bias,
Ah.
even situations where these AI systems start prioritizing their own goals over, human well-being.
And now I'm starting to sweat a little. It seems like the stakes are pretty high. So what can we actually do to make sure, those worst case scenarios don't become reality?
Well, the key is to prioritize safety, ethics, and transparency every step of the way. We need to establish some really strong safety protocols, clear ethical guidelines, and, meaningful human oversight.
So it's not just about like building the technology, it's about building it responsibly. Like
Yeah.
we have to consider the ethical implications from the get-go and, the potential impact this could have on society.
Exactly. We need to remember that we're creating tools here, and these tools are meant to serve humanity, not the other way around.
So where do we go from here? It feels like we're at this crucial turning point, right? Like the choices we make today are going to have a huge impact down the road.
You're absolutely right. The future of AI isn't some predetermined thing, It's something we're actively shaping right now with the decisions we make. And that means we all need to be part of this conversation, not just the tech experts.
So we're talking policymakers, ethicists, social scientists, everyday people too.
Everyone. The more we understand about this technology, the more we can engage in those important discussions, ask the right questions, and really advocate for responsible development. That's how we ensure that AI benefits all of humanity.
Well said. It's been an amazing journey exploring the world of self-modifying LLMs with you. I've learned a ton.
It's been my pleasure. And to all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it informative and thought-provoking. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.